Today we're going to be making non-surgical face masks. Let's get started. We're going to start off by making some bias tape. If you already have pre-made bias tape or store-bought bias tape, you can go ahead and jump forward. I'll put a timestamp below. Bias tape is a piece of, like a strip of fabric that's been folded in half or double folded in this case. The yellow one's store-bought and the teal one's one that I've made. You're going to start by using a square piece of fabric. I'm using a small piece right now just to show you and so it all fits in the frame, but I'll use a bigger piece later. What you're going to do is take one corner, fold it diagonally across to the other, so now you have a triangle. Then you're going to take your bottom corner and fold it up to the opposite top corner. Then you're going to take the bottom part of the triangle right here and fold it directly up to the very top point. And this is where we're going to be making our cuts. I'm going to be using 50 inches by 50 inches on my square. I'm going to go ahead and put my diagonals over. Like I said, this is why I use the small piece to show you how I was folding, because it wouldn't all fit in the frame. So I'm going to flatten that out, and then I'm going to take my bottom point, fold it diagonally across again, adjust my triangle, and then bring the bottom all the way to that top point. I'm just going to use a straight edge to trim off the fold there on the end, and then I'm going to be making cuts every 2 inches. You could do 2.5 or 3 inches for this particular bias tape, but I'm just doing an even 2. Then every 2 inches, I just make a slice. Now that we have all our strips cut, we're going to go ahead and connect them. I'm going to take one strip right side up. My fabric doesn't really have a right and wrong side, but if you did have a pattern, you'd want right side up. Then you're going to get a second strip and do right side down, and you're just going to place it to make a right angle right here. Next, what I'm going to do is get a straight edge and go ahead and make a diagonal line from each point where the fabric crosses. Just go straight along there, and then I'm going to sew across that line. Once you've sewn across the diagonal line, you'll go ahead and just cut your excess fabric right there, and then you now have connected bias tape. Just continue doing this end to end until you have the length of bias tape that you need. In this case, we need 2 strips that are each 50 inches long. The next step is just polish up the bias tape. I'm going to open this seam here, the excess fabric, and just take my iron and press it down so that the fabric will be completely flat. Next, we're going to take the bias tape and fold each side in to the middle of the strip. So I'm just taking the top part and the bottom part and folding it right there towards the middle. I'm going to take a pin and just secure my fold like that. I'm doing it directly to my little ironing mat. You can pin it on whatever works for you though. So I have one pin over and tucked with the bias tape tucked in, and then I'm going to do one on the bottom as well. Just to be clear, my bias tape itself isn't like through an actual pin, but a pin is holding down the bias tape. Next, what you're going to do is just pull your fabric through and iron. So those pins are just kind of securing it, and it'll fold the material on itself, and then you just iron every few inches to keep that fold. And this is how it should look. We have top and bottom pressed inward. Next, what we're going to do is fold the bias tape one more time, just top touching the bottom there. Fold it right in half, and I'm going to do that pin trick again. Just pin it to my mat. Well, have a pin secure it down to the mat, and then pull through and press. There we go. We just made homemade bias tape, double fold bias tape to be exact. Okay, to get started on the actual mask, I'm going to cut a piece of fabric 7 inches by 18 inches and fold it in half with right sides together. I'm going to sew along this raw edge right here. I'm just going to sew a few inches at the top and backstitch, and then go down the bottom a few inches, sew it and backstitch, leaving about a 3 or 4 inch gap in between. Okay, once that's sewn, you now have a tube. You're going to go ahead and find the seam of that tube and go ahead and press it open. As you're pressing it open, you'll notice you have a little hole there, and what that hole is going to end up being for is if you want to insert some kind of filter for your face mask. And right here where we're pressing the seam open is really just to give it more of a finished, polished look. You could go ahead and sew along the sides of that if you wanted to, but I'm not going to. So go ahead and flip it right side out. You'll see your little filter pocket right there. I'm going to arrange my mask so that the filter pocket is just about 2 inches from the left. And the filter pocket will be on the back of the mask, like the part of the mask that's actually touching your face. Take my iron and just iron my fabric so that that pocket is about 2 inches from the left, and then it'll give me a nice rectangle to work with. This part's totally optional, but I bought a little bit of floral wire that I'm going to insert to the top of the mask so that I'm able to pinch the mask around my nose. And I just cut around 5 or 6 inches of wire, and then just using my hands folded in the edges of the wire so that it wasn't sharp. I'm going to set the wire to the side, and I'll be using that shortly. Okay, we're going to take our bias tape, and then this is my first 50-inch strip. I'm going to find the middle of it and the middle of my rectangle for my mask. Go ahead, open up the bias tape, and just place the top edge of the bias tape to the raw edge of the mask. And then I'm going to sew along my first little folded line there. Once I have that sewn, I'm going to flip over the mask, insert my 5 to 6 inches of wire, and then fold over the bias tape and sew down that line. Once you've sewn the bias tape down to the mask, you're also going to want to make 2 vertical stitches on both ends of where the bias tape meets the mask. That way you'll kind of encase the wire there and it won't fall out. Now that we have the mask sewn to the top strip of bias tape, you'll just go ahead and sew all along your bias tape down either side of your mask. That way there aren't any raw edges and your ties are nice and finished. Once your top strip is totally completed, you can do the exact same thing on the bottom. Find the middle of your bias tape, the middle of your mask. Go ahead and put those raw edges together. Stitch there, and you will stitch along there. You don't need to add wire in the bottom. If you want to, you could. I didn't do that. But then once that's stitched, you'll flip over your mask and then fold the bias tape over, sew that down, and sew down your strips as well. Okay, now that we've completed the little strips, the ties for the top and bottom, you're going to go ahead and grab your iron again, grab your mask, and with the front of the mask facing down, you're going to fold it directly in half and then press it. Then you're going to open it up and take the bottom, meet it to the middle, and the top, meet it to the middle, and press again. Now that we have these really crisp creases in your mask, you're going to go ahead and open it up, flip it so that the front of the mask is now facing you and that the wires part of the mask is on top. Start with that bottom crease and just give it a little pinch. I don't have an exact measurement. I think I would say about almost half an inch, between 1/4 and 1/2 inch is how much I pinch there. And then you're just going to fold it directly down and take either a pin or a clip and clip each side of that fold. And that's how you make your first pleat. And you're going to go ahead and do that with each one of our creases. Go to the middle, do a little pinch, fold it down, and then clip each side. Same thing with the top. Go ahead and pinch right out the crease, fold it down, and pin each side. Once you have all of those pleats secured, you'll just take your iron, press the pleats one more time, and then take the mask to your sewing machine and just sew along the edge of both sides of the mask. And there you go. You've made a non-surgical face mask with a little pocket in the back for a filter if you choose to put one in. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Leave a comment if you have any questions. I hope everyone stays safe and healthy. Bye.